met John recently, and just so impressed with this guy. He um, uh, is a chief of staff for the NFL's, I think, largest sports management firm in the country. They represent, pro football players, executives, administrators in pro football, but they are just a monster in this space. And he's got an incredible position there. But what impressed me the most about John was that he started there as an intern and worked his way up, which I love stories like that. I love um, when somebody starts at the bottom and just shows them what they got, and then he just keeps advancing at the firm and to the level that you are right now. So I think there are tons of lessons here. John, these are all transitioning service members who are on live with us now, and then we have a bunch more who watch our live streams. Some of them are interested in going into sports. Most are interested in going into probably other career paths. But I think the lessons that you can share today about your experience working in corporate America, and what are the things that you've done to help you progress the way you have at such an elite company is going to be super valuable. So thanks for taking some time, man. We appreciate you.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. Yeah, no, you and I obviously spoke a couple weeks ago, and you kind of shared what Seven Eagles does, and kind of the group today. So again, super excited to kind of meet everyone, and kind of share my background and path as kind of everyone on the call is working their way from military enlisting, to transitioning to other careers on the other side of the military. So, as Jordy kind of teed up there, I started out as an intern at Athletes First, originally from the Northeast. I'm currently calling in today from our office here in New York. Originally from New Jersey, I went to Notre Dame for undergrad, which is obviously a big football school. And while I was there, I think like the number one thing I'll say and kind of the general thematic is like, your like network and relationships are everything. And, like a lot of people would be like, well, all my network and relationships right now are in the military, or, my friends from home, or, not necessarily in the field that, you're trying to get into. But, that's kind of where the legwork and kind of, getting out there and meeting people, and going to different events, and taking a leap and going to different conferences, and starting to kind of forge those connections. So while I was at Notre Dame, took advantage of the great kind of network on campus, the sports departments on campus, and also the alumni network. So I was always kind of interested in getting into sports. Immediately following undergrad, I actually did a program called Teach for America, which is like a 2-year like service-oriented program where you're placed in like underserved communities, and you end up being a teacher. I ended up teaching fourth grade for 2 years, and my plan always from there was like to go to law school, try and get into sports, and kind of so on and so forth. And just the way timing kind of worked out, I was going to have like another year between the 2-year Teach for America obligation and when like timing could potentially sync up to go to law school. And I was like, maybe this would be an opportunity to do kind of something in kind of the field that I'm trying to get into, which is sports. This is back in 2012, and what I did was I kind of looked at kind of the landscape, and it's like, well, it's difficult to get an entry level position in sports. It's not easy to crack. It's not an easy field to crack into. It's a smaller industry than a lot of people may think, and people move, and it's like from place to place where your kind of your network definitely matters. And I kind of didn't have the greatest network in the space at that point. So like again, I'm 24, 25 at this point, or 24 at this point, a couple of years into my career, and I, find out about this opportunity. I literally apply for an unpaid internship, which was going to require me to move from the East Coast to the West Coast to the only office we had at the time in California. And, they basically had unpaid internships because, again, I actually don't, we pay our interns now, full disclosure, but at the time, I don't know if it was actually 100%, like employment law legal that we were unpaid. But, like it was one of those things where there was people, itching for those opportunities. But a lot of times when we were a lot smaller at the time, I ended up being like employee number 20, and we're up to about 90 employees now, about a dozen or so years later. But we always have an influx of people looking for like a summer internship, like in between years of college or whatever. But like the agency needs interns all year round, like fall, spring, and realistically fall during football season, spring during draft process, free agency, all different things is also busy. The summer is actually kind of our quieter season, but that's when people are looking to intern. It ends up being more of like an educational experience. But I ended up seeing the opportunity where it was like, wow, I mean, I could move out there and basically take an unpaid opportunity that started in the fall, and like move myself across country. I had saved up some money from the 2 years of Teach for America, and I was like, let me take this leap of faith because again, this could be my way to get my foot in the door. And kind of that's like the other thing too. I would say like overarching principles is definitely like your network and relationships and getting out there and meeting people and forging those connections definitely goes a long way, especially when you're trying to get your foot in the door somewhere. And then whatever industry it is and like we see it now, we literally actually ironically had a fall intern start yesterday, just on the other side of Labor Day. And our CEO was actually in town and kind of said the same thing. Like the hardest part is actually getting your foot in the door. And then once you have your foot in the door, it's really up to you where you take it from there, right? Like, are you coming in, 9 to 5 and so on, or like, are you the first person here in the morning, like the last person here, trying to take on as much work and have conversations with people in the office, or are you just like, kind of coasting during that opportunity because realistically you have to take those opportunities and kind of go from there with it. And that was kind of my mentality where, I moved out to California. Again, had already graduated Notre Dame 2+ years ago and just, was an unpaid intern and doing things from like taking lunch orders and like very unglamorous things. But like, again, like even still now, a dozen years into my career, like we're still a pretty small and nimble company. And like I was in the office today and it was like, oh, we have like no waters in the fridge. Like, let me just take the case of water and put it in, so you kind of always just have that kind of, I've always just had that kind of do whatever mentality, no job, no task too big, no task too small. But I did that through the internship, forged some great relationships with people at the company. And then basically, as the fall was concluding, they were like, do you want to stick around for the spring? And I was like, yeah, sure. And they ended up paying me a little bit. And then that kind of just kind of snowballed to a full-time opportunity in our marketing group. And then I kind of went on pause for a little bit, ended up going to law school, but working kind of on some legal things remotely for about a year and a half of like my back end of law school. And then right as I graduated law school, we were actually in the process of opening up a second office here in New York City. Originally being from the East Coast, I always thought like I'd move back to California, get involved on the legal side of things, but we ended up opening an office in New York and hiring a bunch of new people to start up some new business we were getting into, in addition to football on some like sales and marketing side. And I jumped at the opportunity to move to New York and dive right in on like a variety of tasks and kind of like our startup office, and just kind of continue to try again, take advantage of every opportunity that I've been presented here at the agency. Whether a big important assignment or like the smallest task, and just kind of doing it to the best of my ability at all times.
Thanks for sharing all that, man. Can you talk a little bit more about what was going through your head? Here you are, you're 2 years out of college. All your friends are probably working, and you're like, ah, crap, I gotta take this job and it's not gonna pay me, and this sucks. And like, it's a huge sacrifice, but you obviously saw the end goal here. You're like, I want to get into this industry. It's hard to get in. Well, I'm gonna get in there and bust my ass because it's such an important lesson. And I know it sucks. It's hard and we all got bills to pay, but looking back, you probably would not be at this agency if you tried to do the regular route. Everyone else was, no, you got to pay me a salary. And all the all
100%.
the all the transitioning vets on the call today, they're all participating. Most of them are participating in a program where for the next 3 months they can do these opportunities. They can do the call it OJT, and you could take these chances and just be visible and meet people, and who knows what will happen. But can you just talk a little bit more about what that was like for you when you're like, this sucks, man. I'm
Yeah, and
struggling.
again, I think it was a kind of a combination of things. I knew I was going to like again, my plan, like if again I could draw it on paper, was like, go to a good school like Notre Dame, graduate, and then like even towards graduation, I was like, I was a finance and econ major. I was like, do I get into finance and that kind of whole world? But my passion was always sports. I kind of knew the legal background would be helpful. Law school was something else I had thought about. And I found out about the program, like you said, Teach for America, where again I was a full-time teacher, making a salary, benefits, the whole deal for 2 years, just like anyone else in the district. And I ended up doing it in New Jersey. And originally my thought was, you know what, I'll commute from my parent. Like I was living about an hour, or I grew up about an hour from where the school ended up being. So I looked at it as, well, I plan on going to law school. Instead of like getting an apartment, and try and do all this and buying a bunch of things, like let me just commute from home for the 2 years. This is kind of like a bridge between college and law school, and save a bunch of money. So that's what I did. Like I didn't have many bills, like, and was able to put away a good chunk of the money that I was making as a teacher. And that was honestly kind of what afforded me the chance to move to California and take this unpaid opportunity and rent a room in a random house that I found on Craigslist. Like again, it was kind of a combination of where I was at, like, in life, and like have the ability to do that, like from like a family standpoint, and then like the financials that I had saved. But my mentality overall with it was like again, get my foot into the door and then just kind of prove my worth from there. And then overall too, like I kind of look at everything, especially like the end goal for everyone, right? Is like I feel like one combination of two things, right? Like you want to do something that you enjoy and you're passionate about, because a lot of us end up spending a lot of time, a lot of our lives working, right? Not like, kind of like you spend a lot of your day with the people at work, what you're doing. So you want to do things that you're enjoying and with people that you enjoy working with. And then obviously the other reason is, you want to be paid and make money so you can, live whatever life you want to lead. So to me, it's like something you're passionate about and you want to make money. But really, the third bucket, especially early on, to me is also the opportunity to learn and just be exposed to things. So like I also looked at it, it was like, yes, I'm not being paid, but I'm being paid with the knowledge. And like, people go to even some people on this call may have gone to graduate school, or go get an MBA or business school and these different things. And like you pay for that
Yeah.
education. Yes, I wasn't being paid, but I was basically getting a free education and exposure to a lot of the
Yeah.
things in the sports
That's a great
industry.
way to look at it too.
Yeah.
Talk about what was your attitude when you got there? You're like, I want to turn this into a full-time job. I'm gonna friggin' outwork everyone else. No one's gonna beat me to work. No one's gonna stay later. I'm gonna talk to people. What was your mentality when you got in the door there as an intern?
It's definitely it's I mean you kind of hit the nail on the head. It's definitely that, like I was always and I think a lot of again, my dad was in the Navy, so I have like I have some familial background to the military. But even some other friends and family that have served, right? There is a dedication and a drive that you have to have a lot of times to, kind of be very regimented with things, and kind of strive to do the best in, kind of whatever role that, you have within the service branches. For me, it was always like, again, I always had the hardworking mentality, just kind of from my like parents growing up. Was always driven and like very competitive with sports and different things. And I imagine a lot of people on this call kind of have that similar kind of drive and competitive nature to themselves, where I did kind of exactly as you said. I went in where I was like, no one's going to outwork me, and I'll be like first one in, last one out. But also, like, I think the two key things were like no task too small, like again, like taking lunch orders, filling the fridge, all
Yeah.
this sort of deal. And then also like the balance of like, yeah, you want to be the first one in and outwork everyone, but you don't want to be the person like going office to office, like, hey, do you need anything? Do you need anything? Do you need anything? It's really just like, I think also having like uh, a good manner about the way you kind of go about it, and kind of just like I was available, I was friendly, I was looking to be helpful versus like overbearing, if that's a
Yeah,
good way.
yeah. I gotcha. Tell, we got a few questions I want to get to in a sec, but first, can you just tell everyone a little bit about Athletes First, what you guys do, who you represent, what a day in the life is like, and then we'll get
Yep.
to the questions.
Yeah, so great question. So Athletes First, we are the largest NFL representation agency in the country. We represent NFL players, NFL coaches, college players at this point, college coaches, even some high school players in the new era of NIL, and kind of these athletes able to get compensation at an earlier age. We're the biggest football agency. We only work in football currently. Some people may have heard of like CA as a sports agency that is in a lot of sports. Clutch Sports is with LeBron, but we're the biggest in football, and kind of some of our key players include Dak Prescott, Micah Parsons, who's been in the news obviously of late if you're a football fan. Jordan Love, Tua, Justin Herbert, Daniel Jones, uh, Justin Jefferson, Brandon Ayuk, CeeDee Lamb, AJ Brown, Patrick Surtain. On the coaches front, we have the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, the Green Bay Packers, Arizona Cardinals, some college coaches like Brian Kelly at LSU, Ryan Day at Ohio State, Matt Rule at Nebraska, some front office and GMs, and then a bunch of college players as well, like a couple of the big college quarterbacks that are going to be in the draft probably next year, the running back at Notre Dame, and in addition, and for all these clients, we handle all of their on-field contracts, and negotiating those deals with whatever team or owner, depending on the position, or university for some of the coaches. And we do all of their marketing and endorsement deals. And we also have a group internally that we call client relations that like helps them with kind of everything off the field. Like a player gets traded to a new team, they call their client relations point person, like a person on the staff, and it's like, hey, I'm moving from LA to Chicago. And they're like, okay, here's some apartment options in Chicago. Do you need me to ship your car from LA to Chicago, and so on and so forth? Under the idea of like we take care of everything off the field, and so they can focus on kind of what they do best, playing on the field. And then we do some like podcasts, and again, we kind of are trying to expand in some other stuff, and hopefully eventually some other sports as well. And then Jordy, to your second question, like day in the life, I guess it depends on the role. So like my role, again, I've been here for 12 plus years now. As Jordy said, it kind of started out as an intern. I've done some stuff on the finance side, legal and contract negotiations, and editing our marketing agreements when they come in, things on the operations side with finding a new office in New York, hiring and some staffing, like truly like a jack of all trades in a way. Some people say it's more of like a COO type role at this point. But some of our other staff people who are in marketing are on the phone and email every day trying to get marketing opportunities, endorsement deals for all of the players that we represent. And then, like some of our agents who represent the players and coaches for their on the field contracts are, talking to teams and negotiating those deals, going to visit and staying kind of up to date with all of those players. And, they're out, in the college and now high school ranks, kind of recruiting the next wave of clients and guys for the draft. And we kind of have like a there's a like everything's kind of cyclical in a calendar, and the fall's very busy with obviously football season, going to see players, recruiting new clients. Then over the winter and into the early spring, new players that we've signed as clients who are training for the NFL draft, we help them through that process and the NFL combine, and all the way to the draft. A month before the draft, you have NFL free agency where, guys are moving around and contracts, and people are working around the clock for those couple of weeks there. And we have a few events throughout the year around like Super Bowl and some college football, big games, and a charity event as a company. So it we no day is like the other in many ways, which is kind of what I have always enjoyed, and kind of what's kept me here for so long. In addition to the ability to, or I've been afforded the opportunity to kind of continue advancing kind of, like in my career here where, sometimes you may feel stuck where you have to go elsewhere, but that hasn't been the case.
Yeah, I love it. What a cool operation you guys run. It sounds fascinating. I know you got one guy fired up, Shaquan Taylor. He's itching to get his question in. Go for it.
Good morning, John. Good morning. My wife
Morning.
actually heard Notre Dame, and she jumped up and just started smiling because she's actually an alum herself.
Very cool.
So, did I cut
Yeah,
you
go
off?
ahead. You're good.
Okay. So like I can kind of like read through the lines with some people. Like I love like reading people. And the question that came to me about you was, with your mentality about risk and drive, were there any books that you read along your journey?
Look at all those behind him.
No, so all these are fake. I mean, this is it's funny. Like I'll give a background on this. Like these Zoom and I don't know how I didn't get from Jordy how long the program has been around, or I forgot that little detail, but like this is great because obviously the advent of Zoom has changed a lot of things. But the background was
And
right
AI.
when COVID started, I lived in a smaller New York City apartment, so I didn't have like a great backdrop, or like you watch ESPN and you see like Schefter and them with these bookcase backgrounds and different things. Because like I didn't have a, I used to go in the office every day. I didn't have a desk, so I had like a makeshift work from home space, and behind me was like my bed basically. So I was like, I don't really want that into this new world of Zoom calls. So I found just like a random bookcase photo on
Notre Dame in it though.
well, I found a random bookcase photo on just Google Images, and I literally used that from like March of 2020 until about July of 2025. And then I took that image and I dropped it into Chat GPT and just was like, hey, could you maybe just like update, like, I was like, can you update the bookcase and add in some like Notre Dame and golf and Yankees and New York things? And this is what it spit out. So AI generated image. But to your original question about the books, it's funny. Like I mean, this is gonna. I mean, there's not one that I could really. I'm not. I like. I wish I was more of an avid reader than I am. I have said to people before, like, I don't read many books. I like. I don't know. I read a lot of just like articles and kind of more current event things. I'm always interested in like the markets and kind of what's going on in the business world. So like that's kind of how I've kind of seeped in some kind of business acumen, I guess, in a way. But I've joked with people I don't like read many books because also for a 2 or 3 year stint here, basically all I did all day, every day was read contracts for like 8 or 9 hours and like redlining legal provisions. So it's like I was getting my fix on reading. But no, I've always just you know, keenly watch what like others in the sports space or business world have done. One that I always kind of followed, and there's always been mixed opinions on it, but was how like Dave Portnoy built Barstool and kind of developed different things. And how like I don't know, I've read a couple like biography books. Like I liked Steve Jobs's book, but I know a lot of people like the Malcolm Gladwell books. The one book that's like the subtle art of not giving, an F. That one's another popular one. But I listen to a lot of podcasts and but not like even some, like I kind of just bop around when I see different things. Um, so I hope I didn't do a great job really answering that. The long
No,
story
no,
short is
you were
nothing
practicing
really in
your skills. You
particular.
had to read a bunch of contracts. I get you, brother. I get it. You was trying to tap into your skills. I fully get it. Thank you. You answered my question completely.
Awesome.
Can you thank you, man. That was a good one, Chick. Can you, John, talk a little bit about what it's like to work in, I don't know what you call it, a sexy, a cool industry, a cool company? I mean, this comes up a lot where people are like, "Oh, I want to go work at Nike or I want to work, at something in music or fashion." And they get intimidated by that. They don't think like they could go work for these big name companies doing this cool job. Talk a little about what that's like
Yeah.
for you to be.
Yeah, no, I would say again, we actually aren't that big as a company. Obviously, in sports is kind of the attractive piece for sure. I think it's a couple. I think like two things I would point to is like no matter if it's Nike or a five-person startup company, like at the end of the day, like you're just interacting with like everyone's just people. You know what I mean? I mean, again, you have like Phil Knight at Nike, but it wouldn't be who you're necessarily like interacting with. Like if you got a more like entry level position at Nike, you're going to be interacting with people who could be in any kind of walk of life. And the other thing I say to people a lot of times is like there is an attractiveness to it on the surface, and there are times like there are like even what you no matter the industry like sports it's like oh it's kind of interacting with athletes a bunch going to a lot of games and there is some of that and for some roles but I like a lot of times a lot of the work is again like yes it's an endorsement contract for someone's Gatorade deal or something but it's just legal provisions legalese redlining the terms and conditions talking about like insurance provisions and indemnification and payment schedules with an attorney on the other side that it wouldn't be any different as if we were
Right,
like selling soda cans
right.
so like, the other thing I would say is like I wouldn't necessarily get hung up on like a job that like seems shiny with bells and whistles and like oh I want to be in sports or I want to like work in tech or uh whatever like I love cars I want to work in the car industry whatever it is because like when you actually get into the weeds it ends up being kind of the same like
Anywhere, yeah.
your ability to kind of communicate and write emails. And if you're going to get in sales, sales is the same no matter if you're selling Dak Prescott to Gatorade or you're selling, soda cans to a supplier or something, right? It's the same like sales mentality and kind of tactics and way to kind of negotiate a deal. And like if you're working in finance or HR, like it's all like my thing is like I would focus on more of the skills and the role that you want versus necessarily like the industry that may seem like attractive or sexy.
Right. Right. At the end of the day, you peel back that first layer and it's all you have the same roles you'll do at athletes first as you will at some no-name company for the most part. Do you have
Yep.
any cool stories you could share of working with
Um,
athletes or any events you've went to or
yeah, let me think. What would be a cool. Um, I'm trying to think of a good one.
do you guys interact a lot with the players?
Yeah. So again, my role is a lot on the finance, legal, and
Yeah.
like the operations of the company, and I interact with like a handful of players. But again, some of our staff's roles, like all day, every day, is just like again, the client relations staff is really at the you know available and at the ready for the clients and their families as needed. The marketing staff is obviously trying to get deals, and then when they get a deal, they talk to the players. The agents are talking to players like, how's the season going? How do you feel? And then obviously a lot more during like contract negotiations. Um,
More of like that's more of like the Jerry Maguire
yeah,
side
no,
of it, right?
100%.
Where
Yeah, and
you
like again, we have that for sure. I mean,
yeah.
obviously, like anyone who's a football fan obviously saw all the stuff with Micah Parsons and Him ending up in Green Bay and, the whole Jerry Jones thing. And like David, his agent, is a colleague of mine here. And like, I'm like, this is a weird way for Jerry to operate. And it's not like we represent CD Lamb and Dak
Yeah.
Prescott. Like, I don't know why he was, operating the way he was with Micah Parsons, but, I think it was a great resolution for all, obviously a great resolution for Micah. But,
Mm.
yeah, I mean, like, I'm trying to think, of a cool story. Cool events like we have this huge, I'm trying to think, might have something I could, let's see here. Might have something.
What's the nonprofit event that you guys do? What is that?
So we partner with a local charity, and maybe this would help. Like, Jordy, it would be good if I like threw is it possible I can throw like a deck up on the screen?
Yeah, we'd love to see that.
I
Just
could
hit
just
share.
show, a little.
Yeah, that'd be cool. And then we'll go to Richard. He's got a question. Why don't you ask that now while he's queuing it up, Rich?
Yes, sir. Good morning, John. My question pertains to the fact that normal NFL stars and players have a usual NFL career life of about 3 years in the NFL. I was curious how your agency is able to, make those extensions the way that they do, especially with some players that like Dak Prescott, who might be like a B plus player. How are you guys able to do that? What negotiation tactics are you using to get those max extension contracts for as much money as there
Yeah.
is?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the careers are, again, three. I think the average career is like 3.5 years because some guys make it 1 year, some guys, don't even like basically every summer there's 90 guys in an NFL camp trying to make a team, and realistically, 90 guys, 53 make the roster, so just a little over half. And like of those 53, probably about 40 of them are accounted for like months in advance, just because like they're the established starters, players, and so on. So that's why, you have the skew where like some guys have a 1 to 0 year career, and some guys have the 10 plus, 15-year plus career. So life after football, we also try and help them and set them up with, kind of opportunities. And a big thing we did do last summer is we brought in a group from another agency that represents broadcasting talent, because that's one thing a lot of people get into, obviously, as former players in life after football, whether they start a podcast and we help them with that, or Matt Ryan was a client, for example, and now Matt Ryan's like on the CBS studio show. So we do those things. But, in terms of like negotiating and leverage, it's funny because a lot of times teams have leverage because they have the franchise tag that they can use in football. So they could essentially, franchise tag is you have your contract, and say you had a 4 or 5 year contract. After that contract expires, you're usually a free agent, meaning that, you can go to the open market and talk to all 32 NFL teams and see where you want to go. But with the franchise tag, basically your team can say, no, we're going to pay you this set amount that's set every year based on like the average of the 10 highest paid quarterbacks. And like, that's what you'll make next year. And then you can maybe get to the market. And it came about probably about 2 decades ago as a way to try and protect teams from losing their star quarterbacks. But some teams use that as leverage where they're like, hey, yeah, like we get you. We understand what you're saying, that you want us to pay him, $55 million a year, but we could just franchise tag him for $40 million. And, like that is kind of leverage against them in the negotiation. So for the Dak Prescott one, the one that was interesting was Dak had his 4 year deal. I forget if he played on a franchise tag or not, but when he did his original extension, that was 4 years, 160 million, which again made him like the highest paid quarterback, or right up there with, or I think Mahomes was ahead, but like made him one of the highest paid quarterbacks. And again, call him a B plus player, like like, we can debate his skill, but he wasn't the highest paid because, you had Mahomes, you had these other guys, but he got 4 years, 160 million. But we were able to negotiate a provision in there where he was not able to be franchise tagged uh, after the expiration of that contract. So he would have the ability to go to the open market. And so what happened was last year was going to be his last year on that 4-year, $160 million contract, making 40 million. And the Cowboys knew we can't franchise tag him, so we don't have the leverage that teams a lot of times have. So we either A, have to pay him, or B, risk him going in free agency. And I think the thing is, like, there's so many teams are always desperate for quarterback that's the one pit position that teams will chase and overpay for. So the Cowboys knew, like, if we don't pay him 60 million a year, four for 240 million, which Joe Burrow and those guys were making 55 million. He's making 60 million. Yes, it's a huge jump when it kind of usually jumps by like a $500,000 or there's a little jump. But the argument was there that if he goes to free agency, someone out there will pay him 60 million. And the Cowboys and Jerry loves the spotlight. And the last thing he wanted was, no quarterback or a rookie quarterback or someone unproven at quarterback. So, that's what happened there.
Very cool. Good question, Rich. Michael.
Hey, John. So two questions I got. And first is it could be as simple or it could be very complicated, depending on what you're willing to disclose. Is what is the payment structure that you as a firm get from the players in the contracts that you build? And two, is your firm ever look, because I see the variety on your Chat GPT inspired background. Is there any plans or even thoughts about moving into other markets, other sports?
Yeah, no, two great questions. On the first one, it varies player to player, and then like on the rookie contracts, all these different things, and there's some different factors. But generally across the NFL, players pay anywhere from 1 to 3% of their playing contract in fees to their agency. And again, that also like pays for, like I said, the support staff that helps them with all these different things. Like those are, all included kind of in those like services that we provide as part of that fee structure. And I have no problem disclosing it because like if you looked at, like, you could Google like what's the maximum fee in the NFL. Baseball, I believe, is 5%, basketball is 5%, and football is a maximum of 3%. And then your second part, it's a great question, and it's kind of like in many ways the next frontier for us. We started as an agency in 2001 as a couple people spun off from another agency and slowly climbed. And when I started, we were probably a top 5 NFL agency. We had some star players, but then we continued to grow over the past from about like 2010 to 2020, and we were the number 2 football agency behind CA Sports. And CA's head agent, his deal was up with CA, and he represents Dak and Justin Jefferson and a bunch of guys. And his deal was up with CA, and he was trying to figure out if he was going to stay there, maybe go start his own new agency, go elsewhere. And he ended up coming to us. And when he came to us, it flipped the balance where we were number 2 and they were number 1, but him alone flipped the scales where we were then the largest football agency. And we've been the largest since about 2020. And I thought we probably couldn't get any bigger. And then this past July, just 2 months ago, we negotiated a deal to bring over from CA again. I don't know why we just keep taking, I guess we keep taking CA's best agents in a way. The now former, but the head of CA football who replaced Todd when he came over to us, his deal was up with CA and he joined us. So we were number 1, CA was number 2, and we took their main guy. So we have a huge market share in football. And that's the one thing we have talked about internally. Like, if we're going to continue to grow as a company, like, we really don't have much more room to grow in football. But we think that, the culture that we've built and the relationships and the things we do for our NFL players obviously are transferable to baseball or basketball. So getting into baseball or basketball is definitely, on the horizon at some point. And, how that happens is we probably go out and figure a an agent or a small agency to kind of acquire and bring in with their existing smaller baseball or basketball practice to then, bring inside the family and put all of our resources and the different things we do for our NFL players behind that player base and help them kind of grow that business as we grew the football, because that was obviously the goal for a long time was to become the best and the biggest football agency. But I think that'll be kind of the next frontier for sure.
I'm sure a lot
Nice.
of the
Thank you.
football guys, thank you, Michael. I'm sure a lot of the football guys love you guys because you just focus on football. Like that's your niche and they know you dominate that,
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I mean it's the
so
same thing
goes both ways.
like Scott Boras in baseball only does
Baseball, yeah.
baseball. He tried hockey a little bit, but I think and again you can get in trouble for sure. Where I think again we've built a great culture, and there's a like
Yeah.
in addition to myself, there's a lot of others now as we're growing as a company. Like again, I started as probably employee 20, and we have at least six or I think there's at least six of us at this point who started out as interns and have kind of been here for 10 plus years. I mean, literally the original intern when the company
Great.
started in like 2001 or 2002 has risen all the way through the ranks where, he's one of the like equity owners in the company and a partner and,
Wow.
represents guys like, Tua on the Dolphins and, Jahmyr Gibbs on the Lions and a bunch of big NFL stars.
Yeah.
But I think we've been able to retain a lot of talent because of the culture and kind of the family atmosphere we have internally and with our players. So to your point, you don't want to lose that, but it'll just be key that like getting into baseball or basketball doesn't take away from football, but we, build up and grow our services and resources with people in a way that would support those in a
Yeah.
similar way where there's no
Awesome. I love it.
loss.
Did you have something you want to share on the screen?
Oh yeah, let me
Was
see.
that queued up?
So, yeah, I've got it here. Let's see. I'll just click through this quick. I'll show you a
Yeah,
deck
show them.
we use for some brand partnerships. So this is like a sales deck that our brand partnerships group shows. Does this? Oh wait,
We got it.
Oh, okay. How's this now? Is it going?
Yep.
So this is a deck that our sales group uses when they try and sell partnerships for our different kind of events and different things. So brand partnerships, and that kind of has a little overview of the company too.
Yeah.
So we represent more players, coaches, general managers, and broadcasters than any other agency in the world. As you can see, this does need to be updated now because we have Micah in a Cowboys uniform, but Scott Hansen of NFL Red Zone, Jim Harbaugh, the Chargers head coach, Bijan Robinson, Fred Warner, Jordan Love, CJ Stroud, etc. This is kind of the things again that we do. Like talent, we represent 500 plus NFL and college players, coaches, general managers, and broadcasters. We've had 8 Super Bowl MVPs, 120 first round picks. Different events we have is our college football tailgate tour, our Super Bowl event, our training of guys for the draft, our like celebrity golf outing that we partner with an ALS charity. And then we had this big and beautiful event in Vegas this last year with our offensive linemen. And then we come up with original content for our guys, our connecting brands with our players. Here's some deals that some of our players have done, whether Derwin James with Oakley or Matt LaFleur with Breitling watches and so on. This is kind of how we go to brands and talk about like, hey, let's come up with ideas together. We can have events you can use, talent to use, and we can create content and then distribute it. Here's just some other deals we've done with guys. Dan Orlovsky we work with as well, Kyle Hamilton, Tua and Fred Warner I've mentioned. Kind of flicking through. You can kind of see our calendar, how it kind of goes, and in a calendar year, but a lot of us consider the start of the year really like we're I feel like mentally we're September 1st to August 31st like calendar, so the year is just kind of kicking off. This was our Super Bowl event in New Orleans last year. We had a bunch of different activations, did some stuff with the wives and girlfriends with Revlon, the cosmetic company. So that's another thing, right? If you keep the wives and girlfriends happy as well, the players will be happy. Dak Prescott's a owner in this tequila company. He had a event at the the Super Bowl event. Here's like a little sizzle reel from it. I guess if I yeah, so it's just like a little sizzle that goes around,
So cool.
and then this year, obviously, upcoming Super Bowls in San Francisco, and we have a new venue for Super Bowl up there this upcoming year, and trying to get brands in there. I mentioned our tailgate tour where we have some of our clients go to like back to their collegiate stops and do some brand deals and record content. We have that big truck up there that goes to these different events. Las Vegas event I kind of mentioned.
Hmm.
It's our golf event. Again, so the events is definitely a new part of the business that we've kind of grown. And like I said, we train our guys for the NFL combine and the draft and do some content around their draft calls. And yeah,
I love it.
an overview of like
Awesome.
NFL players and all our coaches. Just it's a crazy list even after, I throw it up there.
Do you know the name of every player in the NFL?
No, no. Listen, it's crazy because again, it's not my like it not
Yeah,
my role isn't 100% like client facing, but I couldn't even tell you all of our clients at this point. There's so many of
yeah,
them. Again, like I said, 500 plus. Like,
yeah.
gotta be someone internal, like probably someone in finance knows just from all the
Everyone.
stuff.
That's awesome. Do you ever have any athletes who you represent who they make more in sponsorships than in
Oh
their?
yeah, I mean, we have. I'm trying to think like, well, like Cooper DeJean, if anyone's an Eagles fan right now, is making more in marketing than he is as a playing contract because again, he was a second round pick last year. So
Yeah.
I mean you could Google Cooper DeJean's contract and it'll come up. He's making, I think like a million, like he's making 4 years, $7 million total. So he's making under $2 million a year. And he, did far more than that now in marketing after, they won the
Yeah,
Super Bowl. He had a interception for a touchdown against Patrick Mahomes. So, there's people like that. But then, it's hard for some guys like Dak Prescott, Jordan Love, CJ Stroud, like some of these quarterbacks do, a ton of marketing, but like they're, obviously doing really well with the
yeah.
on-field contracts as
And I
well.
imagine a lot of like the younger, like you guys are probably going after a lot of the top high school players. Like they're so good on
Oh,
social
100%. I mean, it's crazy. We
influencing.
we represent a bunch like so
Yeah,
like for the first high school player we ever signed was Cade Klubnik, who is now a senior quarterback at Clemson. They were the big marquee game on
yeah,
Saturday night, Clemson LSU. And we signed him as a high school senior out of Texas. He went to the same high school as Nick Foles, who was a client of ours, Eagles Super Bowl MVP and all of that. So there was obviously like the high school connection there. But we signed Cade as a senior in high school, just kind of knowing where this kind of collegiate space was going. And we've represented Cade through his college career, and he does like legitimate marketing deals with like Celsius, the energy drink brand, one of the
yeah.
shoe brands, all these different things, trading card companies. So we've worked with Cade now for 4 years, call it, and he says last year at Clemson, and obviously everyone hopes he has a great year and is entering the NFL draft, and we'll represent him there, and obviously more money to be made.
But
Wild world though.
he probably comes with a following of 1 million people on social, so it makes probably some of the marketing deals you do when they do come to you a little easier.
Yeah,
That base. That's awesome, man. This was great, man. I appreciate you so much for doing
for
this.
sure.
You have one more question before
Yeah.
we let him go?
Yes, sir, John. As for getting marketing deals, this is a very specific question towards me, but I have a YouTube channel. And it's all revolving around golf. And I know it's not really the same thing as like getting all these big brands, but is there like any skills that you would teach somebody like coming out into the NFL to get more of those brand deals? Like, uh,
Yeah, no, I kind of get what you're asking. So to get those brand deals, a lot of times, like we have our sales people who have the brand contacts and relationship where like again, like you have good players Gatorade is going to want to do a deal with them, but we also get deals with Gatorade because we've done other deals with Gatorade, and someone on the staff has a relationship and knows what the structure of the deals have been and so on and so forth. But what also helps people get marketing deals is like most marketing deals and endorsement deals now are not like, you know, 20 years ago, people were doing marketing deals and they were doing, like, we used to do deals all the time for people in East Bay magazine. If anyone remembers, it was like the catalog you could get in the mail that you would order like sneakers or athletic gear and stuff. And it's just like print has kind of gone by the wayside. So that's an avenue that's gone. And then, there's just not as many, like, some people still do national commercials, but it's just like everything's digital and social. So, we try and help our guys figure out ways to like grow their social following, because that's kind of what every brand looks at. Like, yes, they want the right fit and all these things when whatever, but they kind of know that if they're talking to an NFL, if they're outreaching to NFL people, they know that they're going, or an NFL agency, they know they're looking for sports fans, mainly probably like 18 to 35, like kind of that sweet spot for a lot of brands. And they know their target audience. They don't necessarily really care if Patrick Mahomes is a better player than Jared Goff, but they just look at the social following. So try and figure out ways for them kind of to grow their following. So like your point on YouTube, you could do outreach and different things, but I think the biggest thing is just like, how much viewership and engagement is kind of going on. And that's really kind of what interests brands.
Great. Yeah, good question, Richard. John, thank you so much, man. I really enjoyed this, and I think everyone else did too. It's so interesting to hear stories about cool careers like this. So
For
thank
sure.
you. We
Yeah, if
appreciate
anyone has any, additional questions, you feel free to reach out on LinkedIn, and I'll try and like I said to Jordy when I connected with him, like I have two different work emails and all different things. Like LinkedIn is the one like inbox that like does get neglected at times, but I make my best to try and find time at least
circle
to go
around.
in there. So anyway,
Oh, this
appreciate
is
you for
awesome.
having me.
Thank you for giving back today, man. You made a big
Awesome.
impact. We appreciate you, John. Take
Awesome.
care.
Thanks, Jordy.
You got it, man. Bye-bye. All right. That was super cool. I hope you guys